Today is Monday, July 29th, 2019. We're conducting an interview with Chef Kiran Verma for the Houston Asian American Archive, a project managed by the Chow Center at Rice University. I'm Angela Huey.
My name is Maylee Braun.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Kiran.
Yes. So, Chef Verma, where and when were you born?
I was born in a city called Jharsuguda, and the state was Orissa, and country India. And I was born in 1954, September 11th, 1954.
Great. And did you also grow up there?
I grew up in Delhi because my father worked for Indian government, and you know, in those days when you work for government, he was in civil aviation and he was a air controller. So when you have that job, you are transferred to every different city wherever they are making new airports or wherever they have the airports for flying.
And so where was your family from in India?
So originally my parents came from Pakistan. It's called Pakistan now, but before 1947, this was one country and it was called India. So both of them were from northwest frontier.
Okay, and what languages did you grow up speaking?
Hindi, which is our national language, and English was always compulsory because our subjects in school were taught in English. And then there are some dialects you pick up when you have neighbors and friends who speak that dialect. So I did pick up Punjabi, which is another language, and Hindi, as I said. Urdu is very similar to Hindi, and which is from Pakistan.
Okay. And so what kind of family and community did you grow up in? So what were your parents' occupations? Your father worked with airplanes, you said?
Yeah, so, he would help in making air manuals for the pilots. So, when pilots do the routing, and as I understood as a child, I think they kind of draw the maps for them. They also safety manuals, like what you have to do when something happens in the plane, or what do you have to do to even be eligible for flying. So those kind of rules and communication with the pilots.
And how many siblings do you have?
We are 3 sisters and 1 brother, and I'm the youngest.
And so did you all live together in one home?
Yes, we all lived in Delhi in one home, but when my father was traveling, and when we were very small, we would travel in different cities, but when we were in high school, my mother did not want us to change the schooling so much, so we stayed in Delhi.
Okay. So what kind of schools did you attend throughout your childhood? You mentioned that English was compulsory because everything was taught in English. So was that for all schools, or what kind of school did you go to?
So of course these were co-ed schools, and they were very much influenced by British teachers, because Britishers had influence in India. They were ruling India for many years. So you would call them public schools.
And do you know how your family was affected by British rule?
Actually, I feel like when Britishers were ruling, they added more education to the system. They added, I would say, the lifestyle of people who worked for the government was more lavish and more in a European style. And people who didn't work for the government didn't have much British influence, so they were raised in a much simpler way. We were lucky enough, and of course somebody would just say, why is that lucky being raised in a European way? Because it was more I would say it was more luxurious, you know, having help at home because you were working for the government and government would provide, you know, like lot of house help and housing for and medical care and all that.
Okay. So what were your responsibilities growing up just in the household?
So as of course growing up you are not cooking at home or you're not cleaning or you're not like 100% doing that because you know being born in an Indian family their biggest thing is and also my mother was, I forgot to tell you that she was a professor and so her big thing was educating her kids and even when my dad was traveling my mom would raise us as a almost single parent and she was very very personally involved in making sure that we were going to school properly, we were being educated. If we were weak in some subject, we had tuitions for that. So a lot of time was spent in studying and actually I was very much into debates, I was very much into sports, I was into dramatics and my mom would actually not be very happy about dramatics and debates and she would think it's a waste of time because it would take away from my studies and she would think you know I need to be a doctor and when you have to be a doctor you just have to study 24/7. That was you know growing up was their mentality, like to be very very strict about education. So sometimes I literally had to make up an excuse if I had to practice for my sports or had to practice for my debate or dramatics and I would say, oh I had an extra physics class, I have an extra chemistry class because I just wanted to do that. But of course you know I became more all-rounder but it did take away, if I really look back, it did take away so much of time from my attending those classes, studying and all that. So in a way they were right, but my passion was so much into other things which I couldn't stop.
What kind of sports did you play?
Badminton and tennis and we have volleyball in India which you play over the net and I think these are the kind of, and like I was so much into hurdle race and races and all that. You know, in India when you're young, they have like 50-meter race, 100-meter race and hurdle race. They just, I don't see that as much in America as we had in India.
So where did your mother teach and what subject did she teach?
So she was teaching in Dayal Singh College in Pakistan and she was teaching Hindi, which is our language, because she had done bachelor's in those days in Hindi.
So when you moved to Delhi, did she still teach at a university?
No, she didn't. She actually taught in a small private school, like a part-time in between, but she did not really do it as a career because my father was traveling. It was just taking care of 4 kids was more than enough for her.
So what values would you say you learned from your family and your community?
I feel like I learned so much about value of education, value of hard work, value of being independent like my mom. She was a very independent person. In those days women weren't that independent as she was and she always had so much vision that the family should be flourishing, we should live in bigger houses, we should, you know, have more lavish life and I guess better living than what we could afford. But she said if you work hard, you would do it. And she wanted all of us to be very, very successful. And I think when my children were growing up, I didn't realize I was doing the same things, saying the same things to my kids. Literally, like when my son was in band, I still remember my mom would say, why are you wasting his time in band? He's not going to be a band master. You know, in India they call it band master. And I would say, no, but he's, friends are taking and I have to. My daughter took ballet and she took a lot of Indian dancing. And so she would always say, you are spending your time and, giving something your kids, which is not going to be of any use in their career later in their life. Why are you wasting money and time on that? And I had to because I was in this country and I had seen people do that, and I wanted my kids to be just like other American kids who were going for ballet and who were in music and in choir and basketball, football, everything you name it, and I made them do it. If they were interested, we said, go ahead. We never stopped them from there.
So was it common back then for women to attain your mother's level of education?
No, it wasn't very common. Women more stayed home. My grandparents, actually my uncle was, my mother's brother, was very much into education, and he insisted that my mother go to college. So she went to college in those days.
And how did your parents meet, do you know?
So in India, of course, it always has been arranged marriages, and my parents had an arranged marriage and I had an arranged marriage.
I see. So when you were younger, what aspirations did you have for the future when you were growing up?
So, when you are young, you always feel like you see your peers, and especially if your peers who are more influential, like financially more stable, you have a tendency as a child to follow them, and you always want to look like them, you want to dress up like them, you kind of start acting like them, and whatever they are doing, you always feel like that's the right thing to do. And so I feel like I always wanted to be very, very successful and do things independently. And I was very fond of cooking, and I felt like whenever I made something, cooked something, I got a lot of affirmation from my father, my mother, and I felt like I could prove myself that I'm better than everybody, like all my brothers and sisters or something, because I was youngest, so I wanted to always prove myself that I can do this and to get their attention more. Like now I kind of feel this must have been the reason. At that time you don't know. But later you analyze yourself, how did nobody else went into cooking except me? And I remember even as a child, I would get into the kitchen and try to help my mom in doing so much of cooking, and even our helpers to help them with cooking.
So you did cooking a lot as a hobby when you
A lot of cooking, even like very small. When I said cooking means like you don't know how to make full meals, but whatever you can do, or let's make a chai, or make a, we call it, Indian bread is flat Indian bread, almost like naan, but you call it roti. At home you make roti. So my dad would always say, oh, hers is the best. It's round, it's thin, it's fully baked, like perfectly baked, he would say, and it's not burnt. And I would get so excited to prove, and get his attention to make best roti or best, like vegetables and stuff like that.
So when you were a child, what was your favorite thing to cook?
I think to make Indian flatbread, as I said, roti, parantha, to make lentils, to make not too much non-veg. I did come from a more vegetarian kind of a family. So just different kind of vegetables.
And what was your favorite thing to eat?
A lot of street foods, a lot of fun street foods.
Did you end up enrolling in a university?
So I did go to college, but I only finished 2 years because when I was in third year I got married and I came to this country and I left my education then.
So why did your parents choose to have you get married at that time?
So, in our times, girls got married by 18, 19, 20. And when my parents found out that my husband, who was, going to University of Houston here for his master's, he was coming home to get married, and like somebody had introduced us, and they said he's such a good guy and well settled, and in US, and his family was really nice. So my parents agreed, and they asked me, and I met him, and I liked him, and I said yeah. And because you just feel like, okay, you have to get married, and at that time, you always want to, as I said, so the only way women in those days really got fancy dressed up and, like fancy shoes, was once you got married. So for girls, always it was like, oh, let's get married, and, you'll get clothes and jewelry and shoes. So you were just so excited about, you didn't even really, I think, know what marriage was all about.
So when you were in college, were a lot of your friends already married?
No, nobody was married. Actually, I was literally the first one to get married in our group.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were you very excited about that?
I was. I was so excited, I can't even tell you. I met my husband on 2nd of December, and I got married on 8th of December.
Wow. What was the wedding like?
It was a big wedding. It was very traditional Indian wedding. I wore very Indian, traditional clothes.
Oh, and sorry, backing up a little, were you raised with any religious views?
Hindu religion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was the most common?
Yes. And I'm still very strong about my religion. But, Hindu religion also, when I say I'm strong about it, it's very open, and it's about, like, it makes you believe and respect every religion, because we always believe like there is only one God, but with different names. We can call it Ram and Krishna, and you can call it Jesus, and somebody else can. But no religion basically teaches you to be violent. No religion teaches you to steal, hurt. So basic teachings of every religion is same. So we do respect all religion.
I see.
But the only, of course, we always feel like, when you do good karma, it comes to you. When you do bad karma, it comes to you. So these are few teachings of Hinduism, which I truly believe in. And as you get older, you become kind of more religious. You deeply think about, if something small bad happens to you, you feel like, was it due to this? Was it due to that? You question yourself. So when I felt like over the years, when you become like that person, you have a tendency to do less wrong things in life, because you're always worried of being punished in a wrong way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So when you found out that you would be moving to Houston, how did you feel about that?
So I knew while getting married that I was going to be coming to US, but when I came here, I was very, very homesick. First of all, you are with somebody you don't know, and that's, it's a lot of adjustment. Then also leaving your family, your siblings, your parents. When you're young and you live with your parents, you don't value them. You just take them for granted. You take your siblings for granted. As soon as you leave them and you come to a different country or far away, it's like, there is just no way I can even explain at that time the feeling of hollowness, and then everybody died for you in a way. I used to just cry and cry and cry. And what really helped me was I started working in a bank, and somebody had mentioned to me that, since you stay very homesick, why don't you go out and look for a job? And I said, I don't have any skills. I don't know typing. I don't know bookkeeping. I don't know anything at all. In college in second year in India, as I said, it was all bookish knowledge. Nothing, no practical, no trainings, nothing at all in our times. And they said, oh, but your English is good. You can, I'm sure, and you're Indian. and your math must be good, so you can be in a bank, you know. And this person really literally took me to bank in downtown in Texas Commerce Bank, and I'm talking of 45 years back, and I got the job, and I started working as a teller after a little training from them bank.
How old were you when you moved to Houston and got married and moved to Houston?
I got married at 18 and I moved here same time.
Wow, it's younger than we are.
Yeah.
So what were some of the biggest adjustments that you had to make moving to the U.S.?
I think culturally I was very excited to adapt to this culture because it was more Western. So, you know, you're young, you want to wear nice Western clothes, you want to, you have the independence of shopping, going, enjoying friends, all that was acceptable. But I was just so attached to my family, so staying away from them was like a big adjustment. Like not being able to see my parents every day, not being able to, you know, like I did not realize like coming to this country is like almost one way. It's not like, oh, I can get up and go. In those days, even like if it was $400 and $500 airfare, it was so much money. You literally save for years to think you have to go back home. It wasn't like right now, you know, people just get up and go, people get up and make a phone call. It would take us literally weeks and months to even think we can make a phone call. It was $4 to $5 a minute. And you know, minute goes like this, and you spend $50, $60 on a telephone, and that's a lot of spending out of your little money you have.
So how often would you call your family?
I think once a month.
And did you communicate with them any other way?
Lots of letter writing. Oh my gosh, I would write 15, 16 pages of letters to my mom and dad, and like I would write and I'll start crying, and I'll start writing and I'll start crying, and you know, like it was, I just even cannot even express at this time like what made me cry so much at that time. It wasn't my husband wasn't nice, he was such a nice person. It was just, I think I did not realize what it was to leave family and home and come here.
Because when you were attending college, did you live with your family still? I see.
In India, basically you always lived at your home before you get married, and after you get married the girls go to husband's house, and basically like if my brother gets married, his wife will come and stay with us, and when we get married we go to the other person's house. That's how it used to be our culture.
And since you were the youngest sibling, had your siblings already gotten married when you had?
Yeah.
And what was that like?
Um,
Did they tell you about what it was like to leave home, or did you see them often still?
No, actually, sorry, my oldest sister got married. My brother, who was older to me, did not get married. And one sister, she's mentally challenged and she has never gotten married. And, you know, me and my brother take care of her. So 6 months in a year, she comes and stays with me. And 6 months, she stays with my brother. I mean, it's not calculated 6 months. We just feel like whenever she's not doing too well there, she'll come here. When she's homesick, then I send her back.
So does your brother also live in Houston, or where?
No, he is in India.
Oh, I see. So when you first came to the U.S., were you able to meet other people from India?
So there weren't this many Indians 50 years back or 46 years back. There were very, very few Indians, and actually that helped me to overcome homesickness when I met other Indian friends. And like we would then start going. So University of Houston used to have Indian movies, Indian cultural little bit programs. So as and when more and more Indians started coming, people started connecting, and you start feeling at home. And then, you know, basically food is the only thing I think that makes people feel at home. If you see the kind of food you are used to eating in your country and that food is there, then you start feeling at home. So what was really helpful was when they started opening more Indian grocery stores, smaller Indian restaurants, and that helped all of us to kind of feel like we're back home.
How did you meet these other people from India?
So some of them, whenever we would go to University of Houston to see Hindi movies, or whenever you went to like grocery shopping and in Indian stores and you met Indian people, they would always say, "Where are you from in India?" And you would say, "Delhi." Or somebody would say, "I'm from Bombay." Somebody would say, "I'm from Delhi." So you just start meeting people. And some people then, my husband was working, his colleagues were Indian, some of them, and their wives, and then we kind of made groups like that.
Was it easy to find all the ingredients you needed to make Indian food?
Not in the beginning, but literally within 5 to 7 years, there were many, many Indian grocery stores, and it was fine. Even when there was one grocery store, it wasn't like this much availability, but combining those ingredients and spices with things which were available in American store totally made sense. Because Indian food is something so simple, I feel. You just use fresh ingredients, and anything which is available in this country, if you know proper usage of spices, you can make it taste Indian. There's nothing you can say, oh, this fish or this lamb or this chicken, even beef. I feel like everything you can incorporate Indian techniques and Indian spices, and it tastes Indian food.
So what kind of ingredients were initially hard to find?
Initially, I would say certain kind of vegetables which were grown in India, because you couldn't get those fresh. Some fruits in India, like now you just turn around and there are mangoes and pomegranates and lychee, and these were all Indian fruits. And now you never feel like we are not in India. Every time you turn around, actually the quality of some of the product is so much better, even if it comes from India, than what you get in India.
And what kind of new ingredients did you incorporate that you encountered in the U.S.?
In the restaurant, you mean?
Oh, no, when you first came here.
Oh,
sorry.
first, in everyday's cooking, I just feel like, I would get flour and lentils and, all the ingredients you really could get it from Indian stores. You made Indian food. It wasn't very different as much as, sometimes people can think like, oh, you don't get this, and it may not be same red carrot which we got in India, but it was orange carrot, and people would say, oh, it doesn't taste as good what Indian carrots taste because it's all organic there. But at that time, people here weren't so much into free range and organic and all that, and people would say, oh, it tastes different, and I did think it tastes different, but I was so young that it was so easy to adapt. I bet like if my mom came or somebody else came at that like much older age, it's hard for them to adjust. But when you are young, 18-year-old, it's so easy to adapt to different culture.
How long had your husband been in the U.S. by the time you got married?
So 4 years. He came in 67 or 68, I think. Yeah.
And what was he studying at the university?
Mechanical engineering.
Okay, and was he a mechanical engineer after that?
Yes, he actually was a very successful mechanical engineer. He retired last year, and he worked for Kellogg in the beginning when we got married. It used to be called M.W. Kellogg, and they used to have office here in Greenway Plaza where I am now. And it was, I think, 3 Greenway Plaza. It's so crazy to even think back where we started, I ended up in the same place after 46 years. And then he worked for Bechtel, and Bechtel is also an engineering company. It's in Galleria, and he worked for them for 35 years.
So how long did you work at the bank?
So I worked for the bank till I had my children, which was about 8 years. My first daughter was born, first child was born in 1980. So about 8 years, 7, 8 years. Sorry, I take my word back, not 7, 8 years. I actually worked for bank for about 4 years, and then we started a restaurant called Kebabecue. And that was a barbecue and shish kebab restaurant. And then, we ran it very successfully. I was very happy with the business, but it was very challenging to raise a little child. I wanted to give her full attention, and having a restaurant did not let me. So we sold the restaurant right away when she was born, and I took care of both the kids. Then my son was born in 1982, and till actually 1995, 96, when I had my first Indian restaurant, Ashiana, I almost stayed home.
Right, turning it over to May.
So you said your first job in the United States was as a bake teller. So what made you decide to enter the restaurant business?
So, I used to always be so passionate about cooking growing up. Then when I came to this country, I said I just got into cooking so much because I would miss home. And then when I cooked Indian food, I felt so much at home, and I felt de-stressed, and I felt very happy. So then when you make so many friends, we would have Indian gatherings, parties at home, invite all these friends. And I started cooking for like 50 people at home, 60, and people would say, oh, you need to have a restaurant, and it just gets to you. And then also I felt like that's one thing I could do without having a lot of education in this country and be successful. So develop my passion or a hobby almost, into my career. And I felt like that's something I won't have to depend too much on people. I didn't know I was going to take the restaurant to this. It was a small restaurant when we bought the first one, and I said, with few employees, and I can be cooking, and I'll develop the menus, and I'll do. So I think it was because I felt like that was something I didn't need too much of education to be successful. Just the hard work would help me to do that. And I was very confident about my hard work and my focus.
So you said that you discovered your passion of cooking when you were young, and you would help your mom in the kitchen. Was there any particular dish that was your favorite?
So I was very young, and I know I've been told time and again by my family, and I don't have too much remembrance of that, but my brother always tells me, one time my mom was not well, and I had made, it's called khichdi, Kichdi, and it's a lentil and rice stew. And so my mom must have liked it so much, and every time then everybody wanted to eat khichdi, and they would always say, how did you make, or you want to go ahead and make. And I had seen, I think, my housekeeper how to make, and I copied her how she had made. So that was one dish I enjoyed making because everybody just thought I made the best.
How did you learn to manage a kitchen and cook in a restaurant environment?
Really, the first restaurant, of course, when we opened, which was a barbecue restaurant, and it was just reading cookbooks at that time. There weren't Food Network shows and all, and of course, it was a barbecue, which was something very different than Indian food I was used to. But the reason we thought of barbecue because I wanted to open a mainstream restaurant which Americans would easily adapt to. I didn't want to open Indian because Americans weren't used to Indian food, they would always say, "Oh, we don't like Indian too much. It's spicy, curries, greasy." Sometimes they would say. So you kind of felt like not encouraged to open that. But I would see all these successful restaurants like Luther's, Demaris, all these barbecue places having lines and lines of people. So I said, okay, it's just roasting of meats and making few sauces, potato salad, coleslaw, beans. These are easy. I read the recipes and got excited about opening that restaurant. And we were very successful in that. And, you hire few people, you learn from them, but also then things, I think the management, either you have it in you or you don't. And I remember, everybody in my family always thought I could manage help, I could manage with people much easier than anybody else. So I don't really remember how did I learn how to manage them, but I just knew once you set up the rules and this thing people do in the following. I think growing up, you just learn that. You learn from your managers, like when I worked at the bank, you learn how they, of course you want your job, so you are in time. You have to complete your work, you have to follow the rules, you have to dress up the way they want you to dress up. So then you have a vision for your restaurant or your business and you set up your rules and, but you just have to, when you have a restaurant or any business, you have to be almost like family to your employees. You have to understand them. It's not I'm not strict with them, but I have a good relationship with them. When it's work, they know I mean work, but when it's playtime, we do enjoy that also. And they have family needs sometimes, they need time off, sometimes they need some advances, but like they have been with us, so when I know it's the true need, I'll help them out in any way I can.
So you said you were hesitant to open up an Indian restaurant. So what made you finally open up your first Indian restaurant?
So actually, many years back when we opened the first restaurant, Ashiana, it was already in business.
Okay.
And somebody, I had actually just gone for a cup of chai over there and was talking to this guy, and he was from Pakistan, he's a Muslim. And he says, if I feel like you'll be so good at just talking to me. I don't know why he thought I would be so good at being working in his restaurant or having something to do with his business. So he said, why don't you help me out with this? And if you like, maybe you can do a part of the restaurant which will involve the bar part, because I'm Muslim, we can't sell liquor, and so if you take over the bar and I'll do the Indian food side, maybe we could make a good partnership. I really had no idea who he was, and I got so excited because my children were about to go to college at that time. I knew I needed to do something, and my husband was traveling. I wanted to work, and I wanted to do something which I enjoyed, and I wanted to do something, as I said, I knew I was good at. And I said, this does not require too much of work, running a little bar in a restaurant. But I think I did not really realize, once you are inside the premises, even if you own this little part, it's still your image. It's yours then, and nobody's going to say, oh, Kiran just works here and she cannot change the look of the restaurant or the food of the restaurant. So I saw a lot of flaws in the way it was being run over there. And I started changing things around slowly. And one day the owner asked me if we wanted to buy the place, because he had small kids, he could not run and work this many hours. And I was excited about it. We made him an offer and I bought the place. and then we changed it completely according to what we wanted to do. And even in those days, I remember people had never had that kind of Indian food in a restaurant, and it was like really in the blink of eye a big success. Just because I kind of felt like, okay, I want to make Indian food, but I want to make good food with Indian flavors. I can do salmon, but in salmon I could do a little bit of spiciness. I'm not making a salmon curry, but I will make it a little spicy, not very bland. Or I'll make a rice that goes with salmon spicy and put that salmon on top of the spicy rice. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to keep the look and the feel of American food or French food or any food I was taking over to kind of our cuisine, but I didn't want to change that protein. And I would want the sides or chutneys to be served with that. And people were so used to having salmon, but they didn't think, oh, cranberry chutney, which is spicy, goes so well. Oh, the rice with apricots and cranberries can go well. Or I'll do the mushroom, and I'll do mushroom with a little bit of more spices than the regular mushroom. And everything I would pair was literally what Americans were already eating, but it was just cooking it in a little different way.
So what made you want to open Kieran's in 2005 after owning Ashiana?
So a lot of our guests would always say, you need to be inside the loop, and I would just get so excited about, because inside the owning a restaurant inside the loop was considered such a high-end thing to do. And Ashiana was small. It was in a small strip shopping center. And actually, there is a little story behind that. Is I had it in my mind always to move here, and I found out Tony Valone of Tony's was about to sell or close his restaurant, and he reached out to me and he said, Kiran, whenever we meet, you have been thinking of moving inside the loop. Do you want to buy my restaurant? My restaurant in Greenway Plaza is ready and I'm moving. And I was so excited because it was like the restaurant with the most reputation. It was such a high-end restaurant. I loved their wine cellar in the basement. I said, yeah, we will. So I got so excited. I right away told my employees without even, when we had bought, I just told my employees that we'll be selling this and I'll be moving over there. So as soon as this news got out, one of my employees wanted to buy our restaurant. So she right away told her husband, and they both came up with the money and they bought the restaurant. But I hadn't even bought Tony's at that time, so we were still negotiating on the terms and everything. And then suddenly, when we were about to sign the papers, Mr. Valone was told that he cannot sublease his property and I won't be able to take over that. So now I had sold my restaurant and I don't have a restaurant. So I kept on looking around for almost 6 months. I was trying to look for a place and found out Bombay Palace on Westheimer may be interested in selling. So went to New York to the owners of Bombay Palace and bought that restaurant from them.
So why did you decide to move Kieran's from Westheimer to here?
So it was not like voluntarily on moving here. They were redeveloping the project where we were, and our lease was finished. So I had no way I could ask them not to redevelop the project, and we couldn't stay there. So we had to close that. We were closed for a year. Then when we were looking around, we found this property, and then we built the restaurant from scratch into this property.
So what was that adjustment like?
1 year of closing. It was very hard but what really was good, that as soon as we closed, all our guests kept on writing to me, when is the restaurant opening? So that gave me encouragement that everybody is waiting. So I had a lot of projects, charity events I was involved in, and I had already signed up for the whole year. So few of my friends, like owner of Artisans Restaurant Jack Fox, owner of Americas like David Cordua, all these were very good friends. So I was cooking with them for all those charity events for the year. And then I was just involved in, construction, designing, buying things for this place.
What does upscale contemporary Indian cuisine mean to you, and how is the food you cook for your restaurant similar to or different from the food you ate while growing up?
So when I say contemporary, my food is still very authentic Indian flavors. As I said, to me, putting our food in beautiful white plates, presentation making a little bit different, making the sauces a little bit lighter, that's called, for me, is contemporary. And but flavors, like using the spices, the techniques, is still very authentic Indian. And of course, as I said, I came from more humble beginnings and a more vegetarian family, so I did not have that much access to seafood and meats and all these high-end even protein items. The basically, even if you ended up eating eggs or chicken was cheaper, then I don't think so we ever ate like elk or bison or venison, these kind of products which I have on my menu. And I wanted my restaurant to have a very high-end menu with the proteins which normal restaurants don't use. We wanted to make it the place where if you thought of bison burger, you wanted to come to Kiran's. If you thought of some kind of protein which is not easily available, you would think of Kiran's.
How did you decide what market to operate in, and when you opened your restaurant, what core clientele did you have in mind?
I always wanted very high-end clientele, not because of any reason, because the menu you serve, if it is the product, original price is so much higher, people cannot, on regular basis. They can come for celebration, but they can't come for regular basis. So you just want to make sure your clientele has enough to pay for the meals, for the wines, for the drinks. And if you are buying, like let's say sea bass, our cost $28 per pound, which is like raw sea bass without cleaning even, just the little fillet. And you add 30 to 40% cost to that. So if it is $48, I need a clientele who can pay $48. But I'm not going to use any other fish because I want you to be wanting that fish and come to us. Because I felt like if I created Kiran's as any other ordinary Indian restaurant, then I'm not going to be different. I wouldn't be able to stay in this kind of a rent place and create this kind of a place if I didn't go extra mile using my product, using my techniques, using like the service we provide, the plates, the glasses, every little thing matters when people come for experience. So we have very high-end corporate events over here. We do have people who are constantly celebrating their birthdays, graduations, anniversaries every day. Every day, actually, my pastry chef makes minimum of 20 to 25 desserts, which are for just saying happy birthday, happy anniversary, congratulations. The plates are written in the morning. We used to have one pastry chef, now we have 3 pastry chefs. So, it increases so much over the time, your expenses. And So your expectation from a guest is also as much as your guest expects from you.
So I read that you have your own chai. You developed your own chai. So what made you want to develop
The
Yes,
chai.
yes,
So
very
this was
good.
the chai.
Yes, it's very good.
So chai is like a hot tea with cream, sugar, and spices. And so when my chai is called Kiran's daughter, so our blend is named after her. And actually, they wouldn't. My daughter Pooja, she was working in our old restaurant Kiran's for a few years, and between lunch and dinner, we would both sit down over a cup of chai, and kind of plan out the whole day or the next day's agenda, and hiring and other things about the business. We'll always have a cup of chai, but one thing, it was always on my mind whenever, as customers, we went out to drink a hot tea, or when we went to American restaurant or other Indian restaurant and you ordered a tea, they would always have very weak tea, and we always drink very strong chai or strong hot black tea. So I could not get that combination which I grew up with, having a very strong chai. And so I would sit with my daughter and always tell her, like, this is how the chai should taste, and it doesn't have this aroma, it doesn't have this color. So slowly and slowly, after talking with her many times, she encouraged me to create my own blend, and I did this. So it's very popular. We serve this in afternoon tea at Kiran's, and many guests, of course, order after dinner.
There's been a lot of conversation recently about authenticity in the food and restaurant business. So I guess obviously you think authenticity is important. So for food to be authentic, do you just feel like it needs to be reminding you of home?
Yes, it's very important. And literally nobody has to teach you, because what's authentic? What you're eating at home growing up, nobody can wipe that memory from your mind. Wherever, even you will see, wherever you are in the world, you're always reminded of the food you grew up with. And you compare your present food or your eating habits with what you grew up to be. And for you, that's authentic. It could be, that authentic food is what my mom made for me. And my other friends' interpretation of authentic is what her mom made or what she ate outside. So basically, I feel like that's authentic to me. Sometimes people, our guests, may say, your food is very authentic, but you are also catering to more American needs or more American palate. And I said I grew up eating very mild food. I didn't change after coming here. And then, of course, when I had kids, I would make very mild food for them. So what I was feeding my kids or what I was eating mild food, I'm feeding to my guests. But those guests, if they have eaten in another Indian restaurant or with another Indian friend's house, and they are used to very hot food, and they can just think, okay, that may be authentic. But really, in India, people did not make that hot food as it was taken out of the country, and it was just given the title of spicy hot food. Spices, yes, but not like hot where it really bothersome to your throat or your tongue.
So Houston is considered one of the most diverse cities in the U.S. What is your view of the restaurant scene in Houston, and does it reflect the level of ethnic diversity in the city? And do you see the potential growth of the number of Indian restaurants in Houston?
So, of course, it's nice to have so many different kind of restaurants and different kind of foods, and because Houston is kind of melting pot, like a lot of people from different countries, different cities are moving here. They have moved here over the years, And as I said, for them to feel at home is creating their own cuisine, creating their own food. But sometimes I feel like some of the restaurants, when they're opening so many restaurants, it's hard to have 10, let's say, Italian restaurants or 10 Indian restaurants or 10 Cajun restaurants on one strip. You are pulling the resources, the limited resources in those 30 restaurants on one street. It's not easy to sustain running a business when there is so much of concentration. I have always kind of felt like when I see so many of the restaurants now failing, also as many as opening, there are a lot of them failing too, and very established restaurants failing. And I feel like it's just too much of concentration. And when I wish there was a way city would even control, like within certain mile, we want this kind of restaurant. Within certain mile, we can have only this many restaurants of same kind. So they could kind of control the sustaining of the business part also. You know, at the end of the day, it's still a business. I'm working here 24/7 because as much as it's my passion, but at the end of the day, I have to pay my 70 employees. I have to pay the rent. I have to pay insurance. It is a lot of expense, so it has to make business sense. I can't have 10 more Kirans open on Richmond and still expect everybody's going to come to us. And I hope they will, but with the same token, every new restaurant would try to do what I'm doing and maybe do something better than what I'm doing. And people will have more choices. In a way, people should have choices, but businesses also need to be maintained. So there has to be some balance.
Are you interested in expanding your business to places beyond Houston?
My dream is really, really to go outside Houston, because whenever our guests come, they'll always say, oh, I wish there was Kiran's here, Austin, there was Kiran's in Dallas, there was Kiran's here. But what really, really stops me from even getting a little bit encouraged, we cannot get Indian chefs from India at all. Immigration has zero allowance for giving visas to food industry from India. So, one person cannot just run many businesses. You're a single human being. I have to be in my own location. But if I had an Indian chef, I could train him because he knew basics. So here I have to be in my kitchen all the time because I do not have any Indian chef who knew Indian cooking by birth, or growing up he ate Indian food. All these people in my kitchen have been trained by me. So I have to be there to check on their taste, their quality and everything myself. So if the only way to expand would be when immigration says, it'll be amazing if they allowed other chefs to come and run Indian restaurants. And I know they say, oh, first you have to choose from what's available here. People who are here from India are like entrepreneurs. They are not looking to work for other people. They literally open their own restaurants if they have that capability. And then the people who are not in the restaurant, they're engineers, doctors, lawyers. So it's really, really hard. That's one thing which discourages me to expand this place, that not having Indian help.
Is there anything you would do differently if you had the chance to go back in time to when you started your restaurant?
I would make more systems, like before, even like when I started the restaurant, I'll cook from my heart. I'll see a product and I will cook as if I was cooking for my family. And because I thought I could cook for everybody. Business was small, so I didn't get very strong in writing the recipes, and then I would just stand and train, and I thought they'll stay with me forever, right? Your employees, but of course they move on, and then again you're ready to train other people. So I think setting up really very strong systems and systems to make this place more business like, more like we have great volume, but it would be very successful financially if I had very tight systems. I go a lot with my passion, and actually my daughter is joining us very soon, and she is leaving her job just to help me out and take the business to totally different level.
Have you eaten at Indian restaurants in other countries, and did you know of any other high-end Indian restaurants when you were first starting out?
Of course, now I have eaten in many countries whenever we travel, great Indian restaurants. I love amazing Indian restaurants in India itself. In India, in the hotels, you have very, very good high-end restaurants, and they have great, very well old-fashioned kind of chefs who bring in very authentic cuisine to hotels, because hotel guests have very high-end travelers, and so they're constantly feeding very authentic tasty food. And I think whenever I go to India, I do end up visiting those hotel restaurants.
How did you find your chefs and wait staff, and what is your management style?
Of course, when a lot of employees hear about us, hear about our reputation, they do come and join us. But now as we get bigger, we have to advertise on like different sites for the help. And management style is like, we keep insisting that we tell our servers, especially the front of the house, you have to treat guests as God. So we are very still, in our service style, we are very old-fashioned.
What is the most significant change or difference that you have noticed at work when you first started working out compared to now?
The guest's expectation from a restaurant is very different than what it used to be. So you have to constantly study about your own product, what you're serving, where the produce is coming, where the chicken is coming, where the fish is coming. Your guest is very knowledgeable about the product, and they expect you to know the origin of your product, and update, like keep service style very updated, the wines, the food. It's just, I think there is so much openness or widespread, like people know about food, the techniques, and because of Food Network and the chefs and the drama behind all these shows, so people expect that kind of service, that kind of food on the table.
Can you recall the biggest challenge you have faced in your career, and how did you overcome it, and what does it mean to the person you are today?
My biggest challenge has been to get the help, either it's back of the house or front of the house, who have same passion as I would, who have the need to satisfy a guest as much as I do. So that's been, and it's still, we are struggling always to find those kind of employees.
When you're not working, what kind of food do you cook? Do you cook the same kind of food, or do you like to experiment? And
I like to experiment different things, but also because I spend so many hours here, I'm not much cooking at home. I'm usually trying to go out if I have a day off in different new restaurants which are opening. And at home, my really go-to food is making an omelette or scrambled eggs with my children. Like, especially my daughter, if she comes home on Sundays, because she lives in Houston and my son is in San Francisco. So naturally, she visits more often. So our basic, even at night, sometimes we'll just make an omelette and eat.
So what are their names again?
Pooja is my daughter and Puneet is my son. And they both are married.
Do you feel that your children have been raised with similar or different values than how you and your siblings were raised?
Same. I feel they have the same values as I was raised. And I still instill in them.
Has being a parent changed you or the way that you see the world?
Yes, very much. Very much.
How has it changed?
I think the things I felt like my parents were strong in, or I would do differently if I have my children. I think, of course, maybe I'm more giving and I'm more accepting my children's behavior and nature than my parents would have ever. We didn't talk back to our parents. We didn't argue. We didn't question. Once they said they were right or wrong, we would just accept. But our children these days, they would always question us, what we are doing, why we are doing. And even growing up, these kids would question, and not in a bad way. I would feel like they are so much more exposed to, they have more independence. And in our culture, we thought like questioning parents was not respecting them. Now we think our kids are so intelligent when they question our decision.
How did your experiences growing up in India and as an immigrant affect the way you raised your children?
I think growing up in India, of course, was being in a more conservative way with very limited resources. So, you're a different person, you have different habits. And when you come to America, when you have more success because you work harder, you have more resources, and you have more opportunities here. So you become financially so much better. So you give to your kids so much more than what we got from our parents.
Do you choose to identify yourself as American, Asian, Indian, Indian American, and what does this identity mean to you, if anything?
So, I identify, of course, always myself as Indian. But the truth is, if you have been in a country where almost like your growing up years, like I was only 18 when I was in India, and now I've been here 46 more years. So what would I be called? But of course, by birth I'm Indian, but by habits, by your vision, looking at things, I may still think I'm Indian. When I go back, my family says, oh, you're so American, or you talk like American, or you think like American, or you spend like American. Your habits, you don't notice that in yourself, but people around you, or especially somebody who hasn't seen you for some time and they see you, they see the difference and they identify. But I feel like I have best of both the cultures. I'm fortunate that I had upbringing in India, and then when I got married, I adapted to this culture and for good. And now I raise my kids with the same values. So it's a much balanced life being in this country.
Did you teach your children Hindi when they were growing up?
Yes. And also they learned so much more because of my mother's frequent visits to this country. So
So
they
are
were kind of forced to talk to her in Hindi.
Are they fluent in Hindi?
My daughter is very fluent in Hindi. My son understands, and but cannot talk as fluently. But he does speak in Hindi some.
So when you're not cooking or at work, do you enjoy any particular books, movies, magazines, sports, games, or other hobbies?
I do enjoy a lot of food shows. I love watching this masterclass YouTube, Netflix, food. It's all about food, magazines about food. Because I'm working so many hours, I don't get too much time. So whatever little time I get, I love to see cookbooks. I love to anything to do with food magazines, everything.
Who has been the biggest influence on your life or your biggest role model?
I think in a culinary world, I would just say I have a very dear friend, Dr. Sharma, and he's our family friend. He had a lot of wine knowledge, and when we started our restaurant, I wanted to incorporate wines in our menu in our restaurant. So he kind of got involved. He was helping us with wines, but then he got involved with the food, and because he traveled a lot, and so he experienced different kind of high-end cuisines. So whenever I would cook, he would taste and he would help me kind of balance out my spices and kind of balance out even presentation. So he did help me a lot. So I would give him a credit for being my role model.
So I saw outside of the bathroom you have a lot of plaques and a lot of pictures with a lot of famous people. What would you say your proudest accomplishment is?
Repeat yourself one more time.
Your proudest accomplishment? What would you say that your proudest accomplishment is?
I would feel like now what I really feel, the way I feel like accomplishment is any part of the city I travel now in or I am in, people recognize you and they respect you and they stop and they talk to you, and that's a matter of pride. And sometimes you're even sitting in the plane and somebody's sitting next to you and they'll say, "Aren't you a chef? Aren't you at Kiran's?" And sometimes they don't even know I own it, or they would just always start talking. Or I've had conversations, and we were in Las Vegas. I still remember we were sitting. We were in a actually ladies' room, and some women were having a conversation about the restaurants and all. And there was 3 women from Clear Lake here in Houston, and they said, "Oh, over the years, this Indian restaurant has become a really very favorite. They are on Westheimer. They have a chef." And I'm standing next to them. How crazy is that? Like, they have no clue who I am, and I have no clue what they're going to talk about. I was so shy even listening about it, that somewhere out of Houston somebody's talking about the restaurant, and I think that's called an accomplishment.
What are your hopes for the future in general? And it doesn't have to be food related.
My hope for I would just think for me and my family to have this restaurant running for many, many years, even after I'm gone, and they continue this. But I always also say, don't have that pressure of running it if you can't, because running a restaurant is also giving your 110% into this. So if they are capable of this, they will run it. If they're not, I'm okay if somebody else can run it. But I hope they keep the Indian food at a very high level, where people will respect the way they are respecting today. Because long time back, people just felt like Indian food should be buffets, and it should not be more than $5.99 buffet in the restaurants. And now we have elevated the Indian food to the level of any French, Italian, American cuisine, because it's just bringing the awareness of our culture, ingredients, our strength in cooking, and people respect you for that.
So my final question is, what legacy or advice do you have for future generations?
Hard work in life pays off, and you have to be very focused. You have to be very honest. One thing I cannot insist enough: honesty. Because when you're honest to yourself, that you can tell, like, like I'm honest that I feel like I can work. That's being honest to yourself. I can provide you this is honest to your guest. I can look after my employees for, they're working 8 hours, they're getting paid for 8 hours or not, they're paid fairly. I just feel like maintaining honesty in a business is very important, and that's the key to the sustaining your business.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I don't know. I'm not a good speaker. I'm not.
Oh no, that was great.
Like I know you was. Sometimes I just don't know like what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, but I just say what comes to my mind.
All right, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.